Hey there, Tim.
Hey, I love this title, The Fading Effect Bias. Such a heady title there. Look at us.
I know we sound like we're smart or something. Well, I have to say, when you sent me the article from whatever this psychology thing, I was like, "That's so cool! It actually has a name. It's a thing."
Yeah. And well, I guess I'm not going to start. Do you want to just jump in and get started? I have a
Well,
couple
let's
of questions to ask about this thing. It's pretty interesting.
let's we'll do this right. So first of all, I'm going to just say welcome to our friends and colleagues that are jumping in for the briefing. I'm going to kill this my screen share and the tune so that we can get started. Okay, here we go. Wait, you're already recording, right, Tim? Or someone is?
We are recording.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to hide the non-video participant so that it's just you and me and officially welcome everyone. Hey, folks, I'm Joel and this is Tim. This is the weekly briefing. What's today's date? It's Thursday, July 7th. So this is the time during the week when we spend 30 minutes talking about latest topic, pain point, a trend in the industry that we think everyone should be aware of. And Tim, this one was spurred by, I'm thinking of at least 3 conversations with owners that are dealing with, oh, we're just suddenly quiet, or these jobs got postponed or canceled, or we've just been going through a really long dry patch. Oh, what was me? And I don't say that lightheartedly because I've been there and I know what that's like. Um, what's what is it in our brains though that you and I talked about that says, oh, if we could just get back to where we were a month ago or 6 months ago, or when things were good, we just need to go back to that and figure out how to replicate that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think what the trigger for me in this thought is that there's been like a good run for the last couple of years. There was obviously a panic moment, and then coming out of that, you feel like this has been a really good run. So there has been like an understanding that, wow, if this could keep on going, I would love it. And now that a new trend is coming up, people are feeling it differently. They're asking different questions. Long-term clients have moved on or gone silent. Projects are being postponed or canceled. There's just as we talked about last week, a little hiccup. And so
Right.
it's often very easy to say, gosh, I want to go backwards. I want to go back to what it used to be.
Can I ask you this quick question too? One thing I know that I've heard you say a few times before, and I thought it was actually a pretty astute observation, is that as owners, we will often have a successful season where we're winning, we're getting the jobs, the budgets are going up, and then there's this moment where we say, finally, I knew I was right. Like I'm finally getting my due. And I'll just say there's a different perspective that you've shared on that. And then maybe we can unpack this whole, and then when that doesn't happen, why do we go to the past?
Yeah, I think what you're leading to is many people can feel a surge, like a growth, a really good year or 2 years. And in that time period, they're telling themselves, I finally crossed that threshold, or I'm finally now a $3 million business. I've been a $1 million business for so long.
Right.
Now have 20 employees or what have you. And then another movement takes place and they retract backwards and they believe that's a loss. They feel that as a loss of like, well, I used to be 2 and now I'm at 1.5. What happened? I've lost something. In some reality, there's this there's a saying that says, a strong company versus a weak economy, the economy always wins. And there's a reality of like, there's things you can't control. So it's some of the misunderstanding is that you thought you were a $2 million company. In reality, you're $1.5 million company with a really good year. And that's
Right.
okay to recognize that. You don't have to, you don't get a different crown being a business owner, a different size. It's always just work. And I think the topic today is this understanding of when we look backwards, we have this bias that says, hey, it wasn't that hard. Now that I've accomplished it, it wasn't that hard. And we don't necessarily remember the effort it took to get to that point or the fear we had, the struggle that was there. We often forget the workload part of it. We only remember the win, and therefore we say not very hard. But then when we look forward, we don't get to see the win yet. We only see the work. So the future always looks more difficult than the past, and it makes us want to recoil and go backwards.
So is this if I understand this concept correctly, the fading effect bias means that the pain of what we accomplished in the past fades. We remember the wins and we think back and go, oh, it wasn't that hard, because we also remember how we did it. So we can like see the path. It's clear. Oh, I had this big idea. I pitched it to a client. They awarded us the job, right? That seems easy. Oh, I just need to go do that again. But then if I look into the future, I don't necessarily see those steps because they haven't happened yet. And I'm afraid, because that just seems really hard. What if I fail? What if this? What if that? Am I getting the bias?
Yeah,
concept?
exactly. I heard this said once, is that the number one thing your brain does is forget. It actually works very hard at forgetting it. And that's how it accomplishes its goal. It saves energy by not retaining everything. So it watches things in pattern, it retains the pattern and gets rid of the details. So the only things that we are now retaining is the pattern that we've learned, and then these key moments, these key milestones. So you ever watch the movie Inside Out? That's some of those, that whole like marble moving thing was playing that memory out. So as we live out our life, what we're doing is that when we look backwards, we don't remember the items that have faded to pattern. We only remember the key wins. But looking forward, we can't see the wins. We can only see the effort it's going to take to get there. So looking forward, we see, gosh, that's a lot of work moving forward. And looking backwards, you go, gosh, that was so easy because I don't remember the work. And so we have this behavior that happens to us, especially when there might be another item pressing against us, say like inflation or an employee just left. We ask ourselves a question like, gosh, do I want to do it again? And do I have enough energy to move forward? And my encouragement is, when I'm working with people, is yeah, of course you want to do it. It's just work. You're going to have to do some work anyway for someone somewhere. You don't get away from work. You don't get to run from work. And if you have the knowledge that you have, you want to leverage your knowledge into work, opposed to walk away from that knowledge that you've had and give the value to somebody else. No, it's not worth it.
What was the name of I don't know if it's a Bob Dylan lyric or if it was the song, "You're Going to Serve Somebody"? Remember that tune? Like,
oh no,
kind of like come one way or another, right? You're gonna work for somebody, serve somebody. Well, I'm thinking of the moment. Yeah. So yesterday we kicked off Revolve, right? Which is like our orientation. Are we calling it an accelerator orientation workshop for people that are new to the community?
Quarterly accelerator.
Yep. Which is really cool. So I'm excited that we finally are doing that. So when people come into the community, they now have this like welcome tour. But the big thing we start walking people through, of course, are some of these big ideas. And I wish we could take credit for saying we invented all these ideas that we talk about in the community and what we call RevThinking. But a lot of it was you and I discovering things, or maybe learning it the hard way, or somebody else taught it to us. And we're the former disciples that are now passing it on. But there were even some owners in that orientation that were experiencing this exact thing. And I thought it was so interesting, because it's like, oh, right, it happens to you whether you're in the startup season, right? If you're emerging, if you're thriving, even in the mature season, you can get thrown this curveball, and then this bias starts to kick in. And I thought, wow, isn't it interesting? Everybody always has a sales problem.
Yeah, one of the transitions we talked about, moving from one season of your creative company to the next, is this threshold of unexpected loss. And there's a desire in all of our lives to not have to solve problems. So we have this imagination that, hey, maybe if I just solve this one problem one more time, then it'll be solved for good. An example of that would be, we said, like, if I could just get better jobs, then all my problems would be solved, because it would have better money and better clients. And you realize the result you're looking for is not actually the actions you have to put in there to get that result.
So let me tell you a tiny story because it perfectly illustrates the point. So my former business partner, do you know where the myth of it's all about the work, the
Sure.
origin story of that myth? I remember we did this project. It was a promo for one of the Discovery networks, and it was shot live action, and it was super cool, and it turned out amazing. And I remember my business partner coming to me and being like, "Oh my God, Joel! Like I had no idea you had this creative ability. First of all, like you're a really gifted director." I
Wow,
was
who
like,
knew?
"Yeah, thank you." But no, he said, "This is the one." You get what he's saying? He was like, "This is the one, Joel. When everyone sees this, they're finally gonna pick up their phones and they're gonna start calling us because they're gonna realize how incredible we are and they should all be working with us." And I just looked at him and said, "There is no one.
Yeah.
Don't you understand? That's the job. Like the job is go do the next project. And sure, the next one's gonna be a little better and a little better. But there's never this moment that he was looking for called, once this happens, I'm set." Right.
Yeah, it's almost like we do this to ourselves throughout life in different ways too. So, often the commencement address that we put before us at graduation is one that we often say to commence, to move forward, but what we talk about is the past instead. Hey, these glory days of high school were so great. And then we say, charge on, right? That's the way the address works. And we have that thought process of like, oh, I finally did it. I'm done with this. And now life will be easy. And you go like, no, life is now just college and it starts over at different scale and different pace. So as you run your creative business, we deal with these seasons also. Like there was a moment where you might be right, where it is a tipping point, but it just gets you to a more complicated pattern that you also now have to master and take on. An unexpected loss is one of those where we want it to go away. There's got to be an easier way of dealing with it. But really, as the company scales, those losses change. We have to deal with them in different ways and we have to take on the challenges in different ways. That's why we often say systems and routines. We want people to have that in their brain so fast, systems and routines, systems and routines. So that when you really are tipping up into that mature business, what you've done is you recognize, no, there will be loss, but I have a system and routine to get past that loss. Or I have a down cycle in sales, but I depend on my systems and routines to keep on going so that I keep on doing sales, because this bias that I have that the future is harder than the past, if I keep up with my systems and routines, you'll see like, no, the future actually is more easily to accomplish because I'm leaning into and practicing those best practices to get me through it. In the past, I didn't have those best practices. I didn't have the experience that I had, the knowledge I had, the value proposition available. It's actually so much easier to keep on moving forward with the work than it is to recoil back to when you were first figuring it out. I mean, naive was nice, but it's not as comfortable as the future.
Right. Ignorance is not necessarily bliss. By the way, shout out to Steve, my former partner, who's here and texting me behind the scenes and laughing at the story, because it was painful at the time, but we can look back now and laugh. So love you, man. Yeah, I something I'm thinking about, Tim, is maybe there's if we want to start giving people something practical to sink their teeth into in terms of what have we seen that works, right, in terms of systems and routines. One thing I was just thinking about, by the way, if you have a question or comment, of course, please drop it in the chat here. We're happy to tackle it in real time. When I think about short term, I think about long term. I guess I will say the long term first, because everyone looks for this short term solution, and right, it's a bit frustrating because I don't want to just give people a fish, right? We want to teach them how to fish. So let me just mention in the long term, because we've been talking about this a lot in Confab lately, because people have been saying, hey, I want to generate more sales. And the answer we've all come up with is looking at a few of our peers in the industry, meaning other owners that are really solid and really strong, and they've been strong and solid, and they're getting calls, they're getting great projects, really nice budgets. And we've asked them point blank, hey, what's the deal? And the answer they're giving is, you don't have a sales problem, you have a marketing problem. Because 8, 9, 10 years ago, I made a commitment to build awareness, to put our expertise out there, to share, to grow a following, right? To nurture all that community, that tribe of people and so forth. And it's doing lots of little things consistently over years and years and years and years. That's not very encouraging to somebody who says, yeah, but I'm on the emergency room table bleeding out, right? Do you have a tourniquet? Because, don't talk to me about diet and exercise right now. I'm about to bleed out. So what are some short-term things? I've got a couple of thoughts, but I want to let you have a crack at it, or unless you want to comment on the long-term thing.
No, I mean, short term. Again, I think my preaching today, if I was going to call it whatever, but maybe the reality of what I'm doing is preaching. But my point today is to recognize that you really have learned something great to get you to where you are, and the result of all that hard work and where you currently stand is not just to recognize what got you to this point. It's to recognize the opportunities that this one moment has for you to step forward. And I think we have these interesting ways of like reconciling our past in such a way that we say, oh, I actually wanted to accomplish something. I wanted to be a title designer. So when you've got your first title design, I don't think you probably didn't call yourself a title designer. You just realized you got one title project, and then you had to figure out how to actually get it done and what all these strange words are and how many frames are in a foot or whatever you had to figure out to actually get the job done. But once you've done it for 10 years and you're a title designer and doing it professionally, you don't feel accomplished. You feel like you want to now make a feature film or something. Like you actually just always want to move forward. So I love that idea of like dreaming big and stepping into the future always is one key element to always propel ourselves into asking new questions, take on new challenges, and almost love these moments of change because it gives us a moment to build that future that we want to live. And that future is what drives us into doing the hard work on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I was going to say fair enough, because there's the underlying right question of, in times of change, it's not you don't go back to but we've always done whatever. We've always done 3D animation. We've always done live action spots, right? You try and go back and repeat. I call it the Uncle Rico moment.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Like, I just want to go back and be able to throw the football like this.
Over those mountains over there. I can throw that football right over the mountains. I love that line.
Right. But when you look at your deeper, your why and your real expertise that you have, you start to realize, gosh, I've actually pivoted several times in the past, right? Like I went from being, say, an employee to being a freelancer. I went from being a 3D person to being a live action director, right? There's all sorts of transitions that we've been through. And I guess the optimist in you and me would both say there's potentially a time of change happening right now. And there's always winners and losers, but the winners are the ones who sort of take that expertise they have and they find new forms of value in terms of ways to apply it. So that takes opening yourself up. It means going on a listening tour. It means, right, being ready to, I don't know, swing for a few fences, even like take some gambles, even though you're feeling like, no, I need to hold back. I need to batten down the hatches.
Yeah, totally. It's almost that saying of like, the smarter I get, the less I know. There's a reality to, hey, as I mature and grow, I recognize I need to learn more and more. And then at some point you realize I actually can't learn it all. I have to use other people. So, another practical step is to recognize when this time comes is the right time for community to step in. It's the right time for you to open your mouth or write a post in RevCommunity, go to a cohort dinner and sit next to another business owner that has struggled like you in the past or is currently struggling, and let that feel normal again. So I think it's when it feels abnormal and it feels like a big burden and you feel like you're alone doing it, it really is so much harder to accomplish and look towards solutions than where you realize other people are doing it. Because I don't know about you, Joel, but like it's so much easier solving someone else's problem than my own, right? So when I'm in community and I'm processing with others, I can actually get out and look for the same solutions for myself. So that's another part. Like let's get out of our own way and reach out to others.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. So that in a way, that's kind of a good answer to my question about what would you do in the short term? Because what I heard you saying is get back in touch with community, right? Get amongst your peers. maybe be vulnerable and admit that you don't have all the answers and you're opening yourself up to new things, and who knows what will arise. I mean, that's a pretty interesting one. And then I would say maybe there's also the idea of, you remember our sales bingo card that we talked about? Was that back in February, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you missed it, you can go see the replay. But I'll just say, to me, that idea is that idea of, you've actually done this in the past. And if I can put a blueprint in front of you, it's amazing how much your brain will go, oh, I need O37, I need B19. Like, oh yeah, I can kind of see those things. And now my brain has something to go after, rather than this vague, oh no, I've lost sort of thought. So I don't know if we would, does that spur another thought in you?
Yeah, it's this idea of a roadmap, right? So I know where I am now is not where I need to be. I need to get somewhere else in the future. I can imagine that, and I might not know how to get accomplish the entire journey, but I might know enough parts and pieces to get myself close. So to be able to break
Right.
down that problem into smaller bite-sized pieces and work your way through it, something like a bingo card that allows you to do it, because you can identify things you actually know, throw that onto a chart and look to see what is the gap? Is it really $1 million gap? Is it 250,000? Because 750, you actually know where it's going to come from. You know those people's names, email addresses, and you probably revisit them. So those basic principles really kind of like take that burden down to bite-sized pieces and a project big enough that you can accomplish.
Well, it also leverages what everyone here has, and that is imagination, right? That's you and I often say there's always something in the box, right? Like if I tell you, hey, tell me on this bingo card, this project at this budget for this type of a client, what's in that box? It's amazing how much your brain will be like, huh, yeah, I need to call client so-and-so and see if they are doing another one of those, whatchamacallits, this fall. And you're like, yeah, go. Now you know the work to do. And it's like you said, it's just work.
Yeah, and it's not just sales, but sometimes it's hiring people. Like, where would that creative director come from? How would I find that person? And from yours and my experiences, we know that person's usually sitting right in front of you. You probably even know that person's name. And if you went through your LinkedIn or watched a couple of RevThink videos or what have you, you might be able to see and find those people. And when not, that's an appropriate time to find a specialist and say, hey, I need a recruiter to bring in leads I don't yet know of, or I need a business coach. Tell me what this one problem, because I kind of get the concept, but I really just want to know the details of how to actually get that job done. And you can create little pocket of seasons and find smaller resources to get you through these hurdles in very simple ways. The answers already exist. It's almost like we forget about it, or maybe it's pride that gets in our way of saying, I don't want a business coach. I read all the business books. Why do I need a business coach? All they did is read the books too. And you can walk through that process with others. You can see like, no, it's actually the encouragement and really the pattern of meeting with somebody that allows you to keep solving that problem piece by piece, week after week, and soon it goes away.
Well, I'm smiling because I was looking at this comment from Ed. It's Built was saying, hey, I just did that myself, right? The next CD that he hired was someone that I was just having great conversations with. And it's amazing how much, I'm guessing for Ed, there was like this, remember the V8 moment, whatever that commercial was, right, back, like, oh my God, wait a minute, I'm talking to this amazing creative director. Wait a minute, maybe he's ready for his next move. And now there's a new relationship started there. Tim, we should jump into, there actually are a couple of questions. In fact, Ed asked one of them. I thought this one is really point blank. If you have a question, of course, drop it in the Q&A. But Ed, your question was, hey, right off the bat here, what have you guys been seeing in terms of the percentage of studios you speak with seeing a downturn in business? Tim, what's your percentage? I've got one.
Yeah, I guess we've been talking about, hey, when this time comes, a solution to it, but to understand like how big of a deal is this thing? Percentage is hard for us specifically, unless we're kind of asking that question. So I don't think I can answer the question in percentage, because the way different companies deal with these patterns, it could be radically different. So we kind of compile a sense of what's happening. through kind of different stories and anecdotes that we're hearing from our clients. But I'll say this, like often I'll just give a sense of what it looks like. I feel like when we're a third of the conversations we're having tip over, and we recognize that, and we have these rev thinking meetings that we sit around and process what are we hearing, what are our clients saying, what's happening in community, and we can hear coming out of each other's mouths the same things we've been hearing come out of our clients' mouths, and we recognize, oh wait, all of us consultants, or most of our consultants, are dealing with the same question with different clients. So the downturn we've been hearing about, really, we're not even calling it a downturn. What we've been talking about is that weird hiccup. There's this one pattern that has just thrown off something. And we can see that on a cash board when we're working with a client, or in the sales pipeline where we look at recognizing the revenue is shifting in a certain way. That's what we've been seeing. And right now, I guess we're talking about, like, we just want to encourage you that whatever you're seeing right now, it really is just keep doing the work that works. There aren't any other magic tricks besides doing good work, meeting new people, having conversations, stay away from commodities, stay in the value proposition side, show your expertise. All those encouragements we give you, this is the right time to pick those up and keep them going.
I'm gonna throw yours in too, and spend less than you make. Right, Tim?
Always spend less than you make. Qualify those leads so that you
I will say this.
I
will answer this question for you, Ed, in terms of just like the specific owners that I've been talking with. This is not the whole community or as large of a sample as Tim was referring to. It feels like it's about 2 out of 3 that people are saying, "Hey, something's happening." So again, I wouldn't use the term downturn, but it's like, I had one owner just 2 days ago send me a note that was like, "Hey, I heard what you guys were saying, and here's one more anecdote." Right, a $200,000 job that we knew was in hand. It's a lock. We're getting started, and then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, the client says, "Hey, we've got to reevaluate. We got to look at some things. We're not sure. So, project on hold," which is probably code for canceled. So again, we're keeping our eyes on it. For now, it's a hiccup, and maybe it's a downturn, but we need more data points, right, Tim?
Well, and we might be able to echo to the same degree. It's probably not this. I haven't heard it as often as I've heard the hiccup one, but I've also heard plenty of people say the first half of this year has been greater than my entire previous year. So there are some people that are dealing with a different kind of crisis of workload and balance, but our answer is still the same. Qualify those clients then. Like, this is your opportunity to create a longer runway, to move up a value pyramid, to look for projects you've never done before. If you're super busy, you get to choose which clients you want. When you're not busy, you still have to qualify those clients. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're going to be very busy and not be able to still generate sales. Or you don't want to take on projects that actually hurt your company in the long run. You focus on those areas that you need to improve. You work through that. You talk to clients, and you kind of keep the projects going. That's always the answer. It's always the answer.
I was going to say, is there like a little simple antidote to the fading effect bias, right? That we look back and our brains tend to. That's an interesting way to think of it, right? That our brains actually tend to, dismiss the painful memories, and we remember the easy or the good things. And I'm guessing that serves us on some level biologically. But then when we look forward, of course, that doesn't serve us because we got to fill in those gaps, and we're afraid.
Yeah, there are situations that I think about all the time that humans put themselves into. I think of like emergency response people, or even marathoners, right? There are situations where, some people standing at the starting line of a marathon, they'd say, "There's no way I'm going to run this race." And other people go, "Well, it's just 26 miles. I better get started right now, one step at a time." So there's often that moment in everything we're doing where you recognize, wait, there are people that run toward the fire while I'm running away from the fire. How do they do that? Training. That's how a marathoner starts a race. That's how a fireman starts a fire. That's how a doctor walks into surgery. Training. And you are a business owner. You're an expert in your field. You have the training you need. Depend on that training. go back to the basics, just follow through with the basics. You know what they are, and start doing the basic work. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. And you will start seeing results from the work that you're doing.
Oh, you finished that exactly at the 30-minute mark. It was like
Is this when I say we exist so you can thrive in business, life, and career? Because we hit the 30-minute mark.
Yes, of course, of course. Let me just check in. There was one other question here. Oh, actually, we got that one tackled. So good. All right, cool. Well, thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone, for being part of this week's briefing. We're going to keep our finger on the pulse, right? And we'll be watching to see, is it a hiccup? Is it a downturn? Or who knows what it is. But I will say this, Tim, my gut tells me we're not going back to quote normal, right? This past 2 years of pandemic run up has been awesome, but I don't think that trend is continuing.
That wasn't normal either. It was just a good not normal instead of a downturn.
Right.
Let's just do some housekeeping real quick. Joel, your Jumpstart class starts this week?
No, it started last Friday. Okay. So this one, we're in the middle of the 6 weeks. They're going through Genius. Next week is positioning. So please say a prayer for all the people about to go through that, painful navel gazing exercise. And then tonight is cohort dinner here in New York. We're going to get together with about a dozen owners and process. So really looking forward to that.
And we did do the first of this quarter's Revolve class. And as Joel said at the beginning, this is going through the basics of RevThinking. Joel and I did the first one. There's another one available. I think Emmett's going to try to do one with the group in the next couple of weeks. So if that's something you're interested in doing, please join that. Otherwise, we'll do it again at the end of the third quarter.
Our goal is to try and do it at regular intervals throughout the year so that when new members come into the community, we can say, hey, there's all this stuff we talk about here. Let us introduce you to all these basic concepts so you can find your way around and hopefully get in touch with the content or the resources, the ideas that will help you the most.
And of course, join us in RevCommunity. We have a lot of great conversations taking place there. Please throw your thoughts in here, continue the conversation. We'd love to be part of this conversation as much as possible. And until next week, Joel will continue to help support people thrive in their business, life, and career. Enjoy dinner tonight. I'm really excited for you. You have a great guest list tonight, so have fun.
That's right. Well, Josh says hi, and Rob says hi, and a few others. So,
and Dallas Taylor, he's here on this list, but I know he's also in Manhattan somewhere because he's going to the dinner tonight.
He had to bail out at the last minute.
Oh, really?
I'm really mad and disappointed. But it's okay. We gave a seat to the next person in line, and they're very grateful. So,
yeah, thanks, Dallas. Have a great time.
All right, well, yep. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Tim.
Bye.